Hello everyone, I'm Georgia and this is The Sound of Georgia. Yes, more today in Julie Andrews' history. And today, just like a couple of weeks ago, we're talking about one that I really don't like. So much so that I've already made a video posing the question, do I hate it? You can watch it up there. Today we're talking about The Princess Diaries. Some of the dates were a little bit conflicting when I looked this up, but from what I could tell looking at IMDb, Princess Diaries was released on the 3rd of August 2001. Raise your hand if you feel old. But it had a premiere about a week before that on the 29th of July. One of the producers was actually Whitney Houston. And it was directed by Gary Marshall of Pretty Woman and Runaway Bride fame. I'll never forget that he did those two movies because it was at the beginning of the trailer and I saw that all the time. Gary's daughter Kathleen also stars in the movie. She plays Charlotte. I'm not sure if it's in every movie, but I know she's in Valentine's Day. So I have a feeling Gary Marshall might have been a bit of the family cameo type director. A bit like Blake Edwards. This movie has become really big and really popular in the public consciousness, particularly as it relates to Julie. Obviously, as many of you may know, they made a sequel in 2004. The talk about Princess Diaries 3 has only increased in the past couple of years. Personally, I think that ship sailed at least a decade ago, and I would be quite content if we never got one. The movie was at least partly filmed on the same soundstage where Julie had filmed Mary Poppins. The soundstage was later named in her honour, and it was the first Disney movie she'd made since Mary Poppins, which was almost 40 years earlier. Overall, it grossed $165,335,000, and in its opening weekend grossed $22 million. The budget of the film was $26 million, so in that opening weekend it made almost all of it back. It was nominated for 11 different awards, of which it won 3. They were nothing really big. There was no Oscar, Golden Globe, any of that sort of stuff. I'll leave a link to the IMDb page where it lists them. And of course, it introduced Julie to a whole new generation. My generation. And I will forever hate it for that.
I beg your pardon?
Because it is undeniably the thing my generation knows Julie for. And that makes me so annoyed. But we'll get to that in a bit. So being undoubtedly one of Julie's biggest and most popular roles, I would be kind of surprised if you don't know the story. But if you haven't, the story follows Mia, who's played by Anne Hathaway, and she's just a very clumsy, awkward 15-year-old who just wants to disappear. And she's also secretly a princess, but she doesn't know that. So she's absolutely shocked when her grandma, played by Julie, turns up basically out of the blue to announce that she is indeed a princess. And that this is a big deal because now that Mia's father has died, she needs to basically step up and be princess. And then it turns into the 2000s Disney chick flick version of My Fair Lady, with Julie playing Higgins instead of Eliza. You have to learn all these things about acting like a proper lady, nothing about the fictional country of Genovia itself, nothing about its history or politics or any of the things you might need to know before you start ruling there. Just etiquette lessons and how to look really pretty. And this of course includes the cliche makeover scene where as soon as she gets rid of her glasses, suddenly she's drop dead gorgeous. Also at this point in the movie her hair should have been totally frizzy. As I said, it's one of those mindless chick flick type movies. So it is in no way meant to be realistic at all. Genovia is not real. I can just be very cynical when it comes to this film. And actually there was a point, I think I was probably about 10, when I think it was the first time I saw My Fair Lady. The movie, that is. And I said to my mother, so it's kind of like Princess Diaries. At this point I had no idea Julie had any connection whatsoever to Princess Diaries. And I know I have absolutely no reason to do this, but every time I think about that I cringe. Because I did actually like this movie when I was younger. And now that I kind of hate it, I kind of feel awkward that I did love it. I know, it's weird. I don't know if any of you watch Nostalgia Critic and Doug Walker, but he did a short review of it for his Disney December series, and while he gets very angry in it, I do agree with some of the points he makes in it, particularly with the acting. Because the acting in this movie is actually very good. I know a lot of people love it, I know I loved it as a kid, but objectively, The Princess Diaries is nothing spectacular. But the performances by and large are very good. Julie is above this movie, in my opinion, but she plays the role very beautifully. and everyone else is much the same. The movie is actually based on the book series The Princess Diaries, written by Meg Cabot, and I know it's quite different in a lot of ways. I haven't read the book series, but from what I do know, Mia's father is still alive. He's not dead like he is in the film, and the grandmother's role is much smaller. But Disney wanted the grandma's role to be much bigger because they'd cast Julie, and I heard they apparently rang Meg Cabot one day and asked her if they could kill Mia's father off, and when they told her they wanted to do it because they'd cast Julie Andrews as the grandmother, she apparently went, "Go ahead, kill him." Which, yikes. As I said, this movie introduced Julie to a whole new generation, and even aside from Julie, I think a lot of people really, really, really love this one. Especially the younger people, and by younger people I mean my generation. I don't know what the really young kids today know Julie for, but I have heard fans of the book series don't actually like it. I know a lot of people who've read the books who don't think this was a very good adaptation. I don't know all the differences, as I said, I haven't read the books, but aside from the fact that Mia's father is still alive and the grandmother's role is much smaller, I've heard that they seem to have toned it down a bit and made it a little bit more safe, for lack of a better word. From what I can gather from the comments I've read, it seems like the books were a bit more serious and a bit deeper. So, with all this, would I recommend The Princess Diaries? Yes! Yes, I would, because my gripe with this film is not with the film or its quality. It is with the fact that this is the film my generation knows Julie for. As I said, I actually really, really liked it when I was a kid. It was one of the biggest Julie movies for me, but the reason I loved it so much was because Julie was in it. I saw Sound of Music when I was 2, so I already knew who she was, and I get the feeling that a lot of people my age didn't quite have the same experience. I made a video ages ago about how I had a very weird and pretty unexplained hiatus from The Sound of Music when I was much younger. I think it was probably from when I was about 7 to when I was about 14. And it was somewhere in the middle of that I saw Princess Diaries for the first time. But even during that time when I was on my Sound of Music hiatus and was like, no, I don't want that anywhere, she was still Maria. I still knew her from Sound of Music, and she was Maria to me long before she was ever Queen Clarice. If Julie wasn't in The Princess Diaries, I think I would like it a lot more. Or I think I would still like it, because those sort of movies are things that I really do like to watch every now and then. But then I went to university, and there were 3 separate instances where people found out I loved Julie, or found out that I'd met her, or something like that, and the response was always, "I love The Princess Diaries. You must love The Princess Diaries. Isn't The Princess Diaries awesome?" And I just wanted to smack my head against a wall. So really, that's the reason. I didn't think if those had happened, I would hate The Princess Diaries the way I hate it now. I don't know why, but I think those were the reasons that I grew to hate the movie. I haven't watched it in years, but the last time I watched it, it was honestly a slog to get through. I just find it weird how this is the one my generation gravitates to over something like Sound of Music or Mary Poppins. I'm not expecting everybody to know stuff like Tom Curtin. See last week's video for that. But I can't understand how you could grow up and not have watched at least Mary Poppins. It's friggin' Disney, says the girl who didn't watch Mary Poppins until she was 9. Ignore me. It's not a terrible movie. In fact, in terms of the quality and the content of the movie, it is far from my least favourite of all the movies she'd made. I'd much rather watch it than Hawaii. Even if it was a slog to get through last time, I'd much rather watch it than Hawaii or SOB or stuff like that. Why are all the ones that I really don't like the ones that have anniversaries this year? We were talking about Hawaii later this year. I'm honestly just kind of baffled how this one is the one that stuck with my generation over stuff like Mary Poppins and Sound of Music, because it almost seems like they don't know about those other 2. I know I'm ragging on my generation and being very, very horrible to them, I'm sure. It is certainly not terrible, but it does make me kind of sad that my generation knows her as the supporting character in an acceptably average movie. Because in an objective sense, I'd put Princess Diaries on the high end of okay, low end of good. So why on earth am I recommending it? I hate The Princess Diaries as a thing. not as a film in and of itself. Which is why the sequel, which is objectively worse in my opinion, is something I take less umbrage with. It's been a while since I last watched that one as well, but it definitely wasn't a slog to get through the way the first one was, and it really does have the best moment in both movies. The role may not be super good, but she does nail it. And that's everything I've got for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I know I get very cynical and very harsh with this movie, and honestly I don't really even know how to start sorting out my feelings on all this. But I am recommending it because it is a decent enough film. It can be a lot of fun to watch. And I know that you, the viewer, will probably not have the same gripe against it I have. So it probably won't be painful for you to watch in the same way it is painful for me to watch. But let me know what you think. That's everything I've got for you today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Stay safe, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my video next time. So long, farewell!